A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Then he said to his disciples, "A rich man had a steward, who was reported to him for squandering his property. He summoned him and said, 'What is this I hear about you? Prepare a full account of your stewardship, because you can no longer be my steward.' The steward said to himself, 'What shall I do, now that my master is taking the position of steward away from me? I am not strong enough to dig, and I am ashamed to beg. I know what I shall do, so that when I am removed from the stewardship, they may welcome me into their homes.' He called in his master's debtors one by one. To the first he said, 'How much do you owe my master?' He replied, 100 measures of olive oil.' He said to him, 'Here is your promissory note. Sit down and quickly write one for 50. Then to another he said, 'And you, how much do you owe?' He replied, 100 cores of wheat. He said to him, 'Here is your promissory note. Write one for 80. And the master commended that dishonest steward for acting prudently. For the children of this world are more prudent in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. I tell you, make friends for yourselves with dishonest wealth, so that when it fails, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. The person who is trustworthy in very small matters is also trustworthy in great ones, and the person who is dishonest in very small matters is also dishonest in great ones. If, therefore, you are not trustworthy with dishonest wealth, who will trust you with true wealth? If you are not trustworthy with what belongs to another, who will give you what is yours? No servant can serve two masters. He will either hate one and love the other, or be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and mammon." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. My brothers and sisters, this weekend's Gospel reading picks up exactly where we last left off, where we concluded with the parable of the prodigal son. And now Jesus gives us another parable. A parable to explain essentially a common occurrence, an ongoing problem in that day and age, as well as in our own. We're still dealing with this problem that Jesus is trying to address, and it involves this big word, this new vocabulary word. Do you remember the days in school when we'd have vocabulary tests or new vocabulary words to learn, to memorize, to use in a sentence, whatever we had to do? Here's a good vocabulary word that I'm sure not too many of us are familiar with. And that's the word mammon. That word that we hear at the very end of today's gospel reading, the very last word that we just heard. You cannot serve both God and mammon. So obviously, using context clues, remember how that's always a way, especially if you aren't sure the vocabulary word, you try to use context clues to fill in. And so using these clues, we're probably able to discern and decipher that mammon is something that can compete with God. It's something else that we can prize. It's something valuable. It's something that can distract our attention from God at times. And it's something that we're given the chance, we're given the opportunity to choose between it and God on a daily basis. So obviously, it's something out there. It could be something sinful, it could be something material, it could be something spiritual. We really don't know based on context clues, other than that some people, using context, will make this a god, or compete with God, or compare it to God, or it might vie for time, that God has given us. So mammon, since context clues don't really help us, we could look back at the Greek, the Hebrew, Greek, And if we look back at the Greek, primarily the New Testament is in Greek, and we see that this word mammon means money. So that's essentially what it means. And throughout the years, throughout the translations, different saints have said, different things about this translation of money, where it could mean wealth, or in a way striving for wealth, or other material, goods, financial goods, trying to have a surplus of wealth. Mammon. It's the love of money in the broadest sense. The love of money. Making money a god. Remember, it's something that can compete with God. We're given this daily battle between God and mammon. God and money. This whole Gospel of Luke, this whole liturgical cycle, we've primarily been talking about seeking first the kingdom of God, working at our priorities. That's what it's really been like during this season of ordinary time, where we re-examine and we recall our priorities in life. And we see, where is God ranking? We've had these great quotes, where your treasure is, there your heart shall be. Where our treasure is, there is our heart. Is our treasure in the mammon ballpark, or is it with God? Are we so fixated, are we so focused on accumulating wealth and just storing it up, in a sense almost to take it with us when we die, or to live this lavish lifestyle? Or are we willing to donate? Obviously, are we willing to be charitable and generous? And are we seeking just financial gain when we're seeking a job, when we're seeking a new position, a promotion? If we're dissatisfied with our job, is it all about the money? That's something that we really have to ask ourselves a lot throughout the course of our lives. How much is this God of mammon, this God of money, how much is it infiltrating my life? How much is it especially affecting my decisions? We even can look not just in jobs and employment, but even the people that we date, the people that we marry. For what reasons are we seeking them? Even if it's not for money, it could also be for some wrong reasons as well. But some people might marry for money. We might, again, choose a job based primarily, on the financial assets and abilities. Obviously, we need money. And I've clarified this time and again, this liturgical cycle, that Jesus is not trying to say, go out with nothing and try to make a living. Take no money with you whatsoever. Make no money. No. We need to be able to support ourselves and our families if we have them, or our families in the future, or whatever it might be. We do need some basic forms of income. And Jesus even, remarks that we have to pay to God what belongs to God, and to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. So we also know that we're indebted to taxes. We're half a year away, which for a lot of us is a sigh of relief. But we know that we are bound to pay taxes, we are bound to pay bills, we are bound to leave tips. We are bound to buy groceries, and all these necessities in life, a lot of times becomes easy to take for granted. If we're really taking it for granted, then how much of a god is mammon, is money becoming? And I'm not here to judge. Jesus, he is the ultimate judge, but he's not trying to call us out, but he's trying to help us to re-examine our lives. And again, in every decision that we make, are we doing it for the money primarily? Is money a major factor? It can be a factor, but it shouldn't fully swayed the decision. Because then we're starting to take that god of mammon, because, even with each little step that we take along that, it just becomes a slippery slope. And eventually, every day of our life, every action, every word that we speak, is about money. And obviously there's other gods too. There's other things that this mammon can be, but in today's gospel, with this dishonest steward, and where Jesus actually says, it's this battle, you can't serve both God and mammon. Who are you going to serve? Who is it that you are going to serve? And hopefully we can answer like Joshua when given the same question, in terms of, you're going to side with the culture, or are you going to side with God? Joshua replies, "As for me and my household, we shall serve the Lord." Okay, obviously, you need money. That's a given. We need some sort of currency, of income, and a way to pay for all these necessities in life. But are we trying to accumulate wealth just to accumulate wealth? Are we trying to base all of our decisions about the financial side of things? Or are we looking to our God, and to God's way of life and of living, and are we examining the values? Are we examining the service component? Are we examining the dignity of the human person? Are we examining respect and equality and love, peace and joy? Are we examining the lives we can touch? All of these things and so many more have to be the basis of our decisions over the love of money. The love of money is the root of all evils. I've said it again, the love of money is the root of all evils. It's straight from the Bible. It's not saying that money is the root of all evils, and it can oftentimes be misquoted or misinterpreted, that all money is bad, all money causes evil, all money ought to be done away with. That is not true. But the love of money is the root of all evils. Jesus tells us, the great commandment, that we are to love the Lord our God with all our hearts, our soul, and our strength, and all of our being. We're to love God. So, how much are we loving money when it becomes evil? Because that is what happens, unfortunately. And we see it a lot in society. We don't have to look too far for this example of this battle between God and mammon. Where are we going to put our love? Where are we going to put our priorities? Where are we going to put our obligations and our decisions? Jesus tells us, that if we are trustworthy in small matters, if we are able to be trusted like this steward, to be able to prudently live our lives with a simple amount of money and financial assets, then we'll be able to handle great responsibilities. But, if we're reliant on money, and we just want more and more money, you can look back, this might also show my age in a young sense, but, for those of us who've grown up with SpongeBob, or are familiar with SpongeBob, even if some of us, if our kids or our grandchildren have watched that show, maybe we've seen, it's not hard to see in the character of Mr. Krabs, and in so many other examples. But especially you see how Mr. Krabs is just fixated on just making more and more money. And again, in the real world, we don't need to look far to see people who are like that, who orient their lives toward money, who make money a god, who literally worship mammon. You just try to get it all. It's life is not like the game of Monopoly, where if you acquire the most money and the most assets and the most houses, you win. That's not how the game of life is won or operated, especially for a Christian. but for each one of us, we're called to examine our lives, to recognize, how much money do I actually need to survive? How generous am I being? How much am I worshiping money? And is mammon being a rival God to the one true God who gave his life as a ransom for many, for you and for me, and for each one of us? So let that be our prayer, let that be our challenge, to re-examine our lives, our priorities, our decision making, and see, are we serving God or are we serving mammon? Are we loving? Are we fixating? Are we overemphasizing the love of money, which can lead to become the root of all evils?